the Lord Jehovah, has given unto you these 10 commandments for all to obey.
That absolutely never gets old. Welcome back to the Daily Wrap. That was, of course, the one and only Mel Brooks in History of the World, Part 1. There never was a Part 2. No. Boy, what a mistake that was. But there's still time. Mel's only 87. What's not so funny, however, is the debate going on right now in Oklahoma following a Supreme Court ruling in the Sooner State that a 6-foot-tall monument of the commandments be removed from the grounds of the state capitol as it violates the state's constitution. According to Oklahoma's constitution, and we quote, "No public money or property shall ever be appropriated, applied, donated, or used directly or indirectly for the use, benefit, or support of any sect, church, denomination, or system of religion, or for the use, benefit, or support of any priest, preacher, minister, or other religious teacher or dignitary, or secretarian institute as such." Despite the 7-2 ruling to remove the privately funded monument, Attorney General Scott Pruitt argues that the 10 Commandments is historical in nature, not religious. This is not the first time we've had the separation of church and state debate. Heather, does the fact that the monument is privately funded mean anything?
Well, it means something in that you could try to make the argument that therefore it doesn't violate the church and state. But the thing is, it's in a public land, right? Clear. So, and it clearly violates the Oklahoma Constitution. And when you reach the Supreme Court, there's really nowhere else to go. Our Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, doesn't often look at state Supreme Court's decisions. They don't really take that jurisdiction.
I didn't know that.
So, right.
It goes through district courts and up to the Supreme Court?
Well, it goes to...
This went through the state system.
To get to the big Supreme Court, it's usually a constitutional question or a federal question. They have to have jurisdiction, and they usually won't take jurisdiction over a state issue like this one. Okay. So the only way that this is going to truly be overturned is if you have those justices who've decided this change their mind, which is very unlikely, or if they were to try to pass some sort of amendment to their constitution to say that they can have this, they can have the 10 Commandments. That's
what
really
about the argument that this is an historical document, so to speak, and not religious?
If I were that Attorney General, I'd be so embarrassed if that was the best argument he could make. And by the way, I'm not offering any opinion. It frankly doesn't bother me if it's there. But it was a ridiculous argument. Everything, if you believe in the Bible, if you believe that all the stories are true, it's all historic. All religion is historic. So what a silly thing to say.
Noah?
New York Times columnist Ross Douthat had a really great observation a couple of days ago. The people who stand with social conservatives on issues very frequently, in fact almost always, mislead them on policy, on the nature of what they're going to be able to accomplish. And that came to mind when he was talking about Senator Ted Cruz, who told his constituency that he was going to advocate for everybody to ignore the Supreme Court and just not enforce this gay marriage ruling, which is just simply impractical, if not illegal. There's a variety of examples of individuals on the social conservative ledger being told things that they want to hear from people who want to tell them things that they want to hear. But it's ultimately misleading. It is not the truth. It is a comfortable fiction that they just enjoy hearing. It happens far too often, and that's part of the reason why you have such an embittered element on the right.
Very good point.
You know, it's more than a good point. I got to say this. I hope people listen to Noah. You know, I may not be a conservative, but that doesn't mean that I have
tonight.
Well, tonight I kind of am. There's absolutely a valid line of thinking and reasoning in conservative ideology. What Noah is saying is that's what is worth listening to, because he's so right. These people will tell you what you want to hear, and they're not following the law, and they're not using reason. That's conservative reason.
But on this issue, it's not that easy. You know, even
but it should be.
But Rick, even we talked about this earlier. Even the Supreme Court came to two very different decisions. They've decided this issue.
But different circumstances.
But right. So it's not so easy to say, you know what, you're not going to win this one because we've got the separation of church and state, and that's it. It depends on what the purpose of the thing is. Right. So there's a lot of things that go into it. So it's not enough to just say, well, listen, give it up.
But in this case, there wasn't any such circumstance. It was one standalone religious item, and you have a constitution, for better or for worse, that prohibits it. The Supreme Court of that state did what they're supposed to do. They read the Constitution and ruled accordingly.
Right, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, but what I'm
You
saying
can
is
change
for
the
Christians,
Constitution, by the way.
right? Well,
if you
that's the
don't
thing.
like it.
They have to amend the Constitution if that's what they want to do. But there are times to fight, and there are things that are worth fighting for.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're within the law, right?
Hey, we said we'd read some comments tonight. This one comes from Melissa Askew. Thank you, Melissa. Regarding Donald Trump, she says, I think the American people want somebody who will speak the truth boldly. We are tired of politicians that are so wishy-washy. We want someone who knows business. Although Donald Trump is not the best speaker, I'm still glad he is saying things that really need to be said. And yes, his personality is sometimes a little overbearing, but let's face it, no one can be more of a narcissist than the one already in the White House. Rick, 10-second response.
Well, my biggest problem was with the first sentence where she said Donald Trump is, I'm trying to read it here, will speak the truth boldly. No, he's not speaking the truth. He is telling you what you want to hear, and it's not the truth.
Okay, it's maybe not truth, but boldly. Anyway,
But boldly.
It's potluck time. This is Daily Wrap. Do not go anywhere.